Clear Lake City Council workshop of Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022 is called to order. Just a couple of items here. Workshops are meant for council discussion and interaction and decision. No binding action can be taken at a council workshop. So there will be no public comment at this. We aren't set up for a Q&A with these situations. We're here to act on an agenda, and that's kind of what we'll do, I guess. So I wanted to clarify that right up front. First of all, I would ask the council for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Agenda approved. Okay. We're on to Mr. Flory and agenda item number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Council members, first item for discussion for this morning involves a recommendation from the city's Park and Recreation Advisory Board regarding potential expansion of dock opportunities. Most significantly this morning would be a 20th Avenue South public approach. There's been also some conversation on North Lakeview Drive. So we've got Jake Priva and Chris Hogue with the Park and Rec Advisory Board here this morning. So while Jake is going to give a review and recommendation on the 20th Avenue South public approach, I also asked him to make some comments regarding some of the thoughts they have on expansion opportunities on North Lakeview Drive as well, and get the benefit of the council's thoughts on that before I get too far down the road on that one as well. So you got some items in your packet. The application that was approved by the DNR for this location is the blue sheet there in your packet, and then there's a couple of diagrams that follow that as well. So I don't have anything further in terms of any introductory remarks or comments. Unless anyone has any questions of me, I'd be happy to respond to those. Otherwise, Jake is going to give a quick review and recommendation.
Any questions, council? Thank you. Welcome, Jake and Chris.
Speaking. A little bit of nerves going on, but it's okay. We'll get through this. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So the park board is aware of the demand for slip space on Clear Lake. We have come to realize that there is some unutilized accesses that could be used more efficiently. On the 20th Avenue South access location, we have made the recommendation that a dock would be beneficial to the community the dock would be about 80 foot long. It would host 4 slips for public use, and that would be about 46 feet wide. I mean, in a nutshell, to try and keep it easy, that's basically it. We recommend, the park board recommends it. The DNR has permitted it. The chamber encourages it, and other businesses support it. We believe it should be the community's right to also comment and voice their opinion on this matter as well. That being said, I'm happy, Chris and I are happy to answer any questions that the council has in regards to this proposal that we are recommending to you guys.
You know, want to also touch on that sketch you provided on North Lakeview too?
Yeah, so we you know, while this is pertinent to the dock at 20th Avenue South and the slip space shortage, we just feel that there's other accesses along Clear Lake that could be looked at a little bit closer to see if we can increase that slip space for the community due to the high demand given. So on North Lakeview Drive, there might be an opportunity to squeeze some more slips in there. We don't have a permit for that yet from the DNR, but it's just kind of an underlying issue is slip space, and we're, as a park board, looking at what can we do to help out that issue of slip space, and what can we do to increase slip space on Clear Lake. So if we have access to it, we feel that it should be utilized more efficiently at some of these spots. Anything else you'd like to add before?
No, again, we've just kind of toyed with some sketches on the Motor Show Drive there, and kind of utilizing, making the docks longer, bus docks, just longer approaches here with a certain amount of slippage is coming out. I think the DNR rule is 10 foot per hoist. Yes, that's correct. Yep. And we're still kind of just working with it. We can count all of that basically from the start of North Shore all the way down to the city beach. That's dock space of that, but that works in that direction or not. So it's just a thought out there to help maximize spots on the lake. And going from there.
Yeah, and we don't need to focus on that one too much right now, but that's just why we're here is slip space usage and the 20th Avenue South dock. So as the diagram shows, the boat slips would pull straight into the hoist, not adjacent from the neighboring properties. So that should, take away most, issues of someone trying to come in from the side and park a hoist. They'd be pulling straight in from the north. And the dock diagram is, the dock would be the same length, or very similar to the same length as the other docks. I believe the other docks are roughly 100 feet. And with the boat, the end of the boat hoist, it would be about 100 feet long, because the dock would be 80 feet and the hoist extends 20 to 25 feet.
And then for parking issues, the entire town, there's usually parking issues. And the parking issues is when we're full, right? 4th of July, Labor Day, Memorial Day weekend, we have issues all the time. But there's only 4 spots, so we're not adding a ton of cars to the public parking on that side of the road. We can actually ask them, as they put the dock in, to park up the Pine Tree to spread up the road. I know I'm on 8th Avenue there, and there's 2 spots there, whether they're taken or not. I mean, it's never really been an issue on the park. The amount of boats that are out at one time, one given time, are only going to be high during the times where parking in Clear Lake is hard to find somewhere to begin with. Other than that, it's a car here or there.
Council, any questions of these gentlemen?
Yes, Jake, I'll ask the first question. Fill me in a little bit as to what this has been used for up to this point.
Sure, yeah, so it's not a boat ramp, but it has been used for small watercraft, such as jet skis or sailboats or paddle boats, that type of thing. And now we believe that it's not mutually exclusive, this access. We believe that you can still have a dock and still launch paddle boats and that sort of thing. The dock is only 4 foot wide. The access is roughly 50, 60 feet wide. So, yes, you would have to maneuver around the outside of the dock, but that's what it was used for in the past, and we feel like it can still be used for that in the future.
Jet skis and paddle boards and stuff, and so you get right around and stuff out there.
Any others?
Yeah, another quick question, because this is not my wheelhouse, so to speak. I do some boating on the lake, but when you put in a 4-foot dock like this, I'm looking at the 40 feet, and I know that there's parking on one side. I went down there and looked around, and I see parking on one side. Would it be possible still to have parking on one side, accomplish this dock, and still be able to get in and out without there being, enough room to be able to do what has been done in the past?
So, if there was still parking on one side, that would still leave the other side of the dock open, correct? And if people have been using it before in the past, like what's been said, they're parking somewhere. I'm not sure where they've been parking, but they've been parking somewhere.
Any others, Dana?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, I guess I have one just to clarify.
Yeah.
So, the Parks and Rec Board voted to approach the DNR to seek what sort of a permit they would grant for this public access. And they subsequently approved it, step 2. And step 3, you're here making a request of the council to grant this dock at that public access. Okay, just wanted to make sure there wasn't any confusion on that. Those seem to be the pertinent facts right now. And yeah. All right. Any other questions, council?
Has this been proposed in the past that you're aware of?
The 4-slip proposal.
Yeah.
It's 4-slip.
Or just even at that access to begin with?
There has been proposals at that access before. There was one last year.
Okay, but even back further than that?
Yeah, there was one several years ago. There's quite a bit of the neighbors right around there didn't want it. There was quite a bit of fight against it, so the board at that point just dropped it. And we got back on. We got on board here. We both have the borders, so we started looking at available space. On the lake. I did the wait list. I got on at the right time, but it was like to be on the list. And it just goes to show that, you know, the park board is listening to what people want. Bring the city, you know, we advise that they go in to the city council, you know, for their recommendations. And making the effort anyways to try to get more people on the lake.
Are there any other public approaches that do not have a dock?
17th would be the other one right down the road. And right now I know that's used to launch for the July barges.
Okay.
So it was discussed at one time. 20th is more viable. We get a spot in there. Again, it's a 60-foot approach. Easy in, easy out. We can get for, I think, in our rules, we actually have 6 lifts on that one. It'd be a bit difficult to get 6 because it's shallow.
It'd be tight.
It's super shallow down there at the very beginning of it. It's like, you know, we work well for a boat approach as well. You know, it's a jet ski or something like that.
Okay.
Requires so much less water to float.
And the permit specifically asks for 4 permits or 4 slips, so there would not be any additional.
There's no addition. You'd have to go for a new permit.
Yep, okay.
You guys to get it approved. Yeah, it's only for 4 slips.
If you'd want more,
Anyway, we won't go there this morning. And 17th just won't work unless we want to get rid of the fireworks, which would probably really do us in.
We've looked at that too, and there's different ways that you could handle the firework barges. It wasn't easy, I'll put it that way. It wasn't as easy as just stay on the dock of people.
Well, other than the Kite Fest, I think the fireworks brings the most people to town, so we better not mess with that one. So, okay, anything else, gentlemen, of these gentlemen? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I guess now we're at the level where we discuss it. So, do you want to go in any particular order, or?
Your pleasure.
Okay, well, who would like to speak first?
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Appreciate that. I think the key problem that we have that this proposal is offered to mitigate is the length of the boat slip list we have here in Clear Lake, which is right now, I think, around 350 people. This proposal does very little to solve that problem and is simply not viable. A dock at that location would create significant problems related to access and use by other members of the public wishing to launch at that location, and it has insufficient off-street parking available. So for those reasons, I would not be able to support this recommendation. Now, in order to really address the problem of our boat slip list, we really should consider adopting a lottery system, by which everyone who applied for a boat slip would be eligible for a drawing to have one. Frankly, we have some people who have occupied a public slip for a long time, while others have waited for over 10 years on the list for their name to come to the top. A lottery system would be a much more fair and democratic approach to the use of these public slips, and it would solve the issue of our extended boat slip list. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Councilman Smith. Anybody else have a comment or a question or a discussion?
I'm going to be right frank with it. I'm not going to vote or put my support for a recommendation for this dock to go in. I agree with some of the things Bennett said. I don't agree on the lottery thing at all. Your drawing, your figures on your drawing don't even add up. You're claiming 6 feet distance between property line and the end of the dock? No. You left out 4 feet for the dock going out there. So now you're down to 4 foot distance there. The parking is a big, big issue. We are going to do a major project there eventually. I can't get behind this at all, period. As far as North Lakeview Drive, at this point, I can't get behind that either. That's all I have to say.
Dana, any comments?
Well, this is my third term on city council, and I can say that I'm truly torn because this is a unique position to be in. You have to be able to look at all the parameters around the situation that we're dealing with, and it's a tough one because there are quite a few people on that waiting list. My concern, my biggest concern would be looking at these numbers, as Gary has mentioned. When I pencil them out, my concern is if this becomes 4 slips, will it take away from what it's been all these years of public access? We have got a real struggle with public access on the lake. We have a struggle with parking. We always will have. So it's tough to just really go one way or the other for me personally. And so for me, I look at it as let's talk it through. Let's look at everything. Let's evaluate everything. My biggest concern would be if we put this on, will we lose the access that we have? We plan on doing a seawall rehabilitation this summer. We're getting bids here soon, and if we do that, we're probably not going to have our public access at City Park. If we don't, then there is a desire and a need to be able to go to other locations. And so a lot of people, I'm sure, will be surprised by that if you don't live here and you come to visit and you see that access blocked or closed off. It's going to be hard to, know to go. It's going to be hard to know where to go next, kind of deal. So it's one of many that as I've been up here, I've been torn. So I can't tell you exactly 100% I'm for or against. I'm going to say at this point I'm leaning towards knowing everything that I've learned to this point. It would be hard for me to see 4 slips there. Would I love 4 people off the waiting list? Absolutely. I'm on the waiting list. I'd love a slip as well. But that may be years down the road. I just, I don't see this as the right spot.
Mr. Mark, any comments?
Yeah, Dana brought up a very good point. I didn't even think about the seawall project. It fits within the box of the DNR regulations, right, wrong, or indifferent, whether you agree with those regulations or not. They do, but on paper, it's one thing. In person, it's another. I'd like to get through the seawall project at least, and then be able to really look at this space and, when everything's in the water, everything looks different. I would much rather prefer to see all that in person than move forward at this point. I would at least like to wait till next year.
I guess that leaves me. I'm going to be sitting up here as the Lone Ranger, but I don't have a white horse or Tonto, so here we go. I think the pertinent facts start out with a variety of things, and I'll just reiterate what the gentleman brought to the podium here. the dock permit was requested and approved by the DNR. So the DNR has no problem. And if you've ever been involved with the dock on the lake, they've got parameters, and if you don't follow those parameters, they do not permit the dock. That part of it, once it's asked for, is beyond city control. The city does, however, own and control the public approach. And I guess the way I look at it, this, except for 17th, as was mentioned, is the only public approach that the city controls on the lake that does not have a dock. Now, I checked yesterday, and Councilman Smith was real close on that. We do have 348 people on the waiting list. Parking has been brought up as an issue. We just altered our ordinance on public approach parking, unless I'm mistaken. And I really can't see why dock users at that public approach couldn't park on the public approach. I mean, they're not going to, we could do no overnight parking or something like that, but they're not going to be there very long. Your typical outing on the lake is a few hours. You know, they could park there. I live right down the street from North Lakeview. We have 13 docks on North Lakeview. They each have 4 slips. Parking in my neighborhood is a veritable nightmare, almost all the time after Memorial Day and into Labor Day events. And on top of that, we now have multiple VRBOs. But it is what it is, as they say, and we work around it and we live with it. So I just can't see where 4 slips at that location are going to create a parking tsunami. It's not going to happen. So if that's your main argument, and as far as the launch thing, granted, this has been used for exactly what you're talking about, but it's so shallow you're not going to launch any large boats there. It's just not going to happen. And if you're launching something, you've got a parking situation anyway. So I don't see where that, and it's still going to be available. So I'm not sure that's a great argument. Also, the DNR added nearby Lequa Marsh as, I mean, that's within a mile. There's another launch. So finally, the Parks and Rec requested that the council consider adding a dock, and I guess maybe that's what this is. But I mean, I think if we just turn them down flat, we're kind of undermining the authority of a group we've asked to volunteer and spend a lot of time and thereby make recommendations based on the evidence that they have available. So I don't like that idea either. Now, it's pretty clear to me that if we vote on this, it's not going to the next step, the council meeting. And I kind of hate to see that happen too, because public vetting never really is all that dangerous. It can create some emotion, it can create some hard feelings, but you know, so be it. But apparently we're not going to get there. I would ask the council to consider one thing, since one of the major objections seems to be the loss of easy launching for small craft due to the seawall construction project. If we do indeed vote this down, I would like to revisit it for next season, 2023, and maybe looking at it with a new look and a new approach, because I still, I've given this a lot of thought. I've been one of the fortunate people on a public dock. I too am not ready to go for the lottery system because I've got a lot of money invested down there. The dock owners build and maintain those docks. And, you know, just to plop someone else down in that spot randomly doesn't make a lot of sense to me at all. So, you know, I'll express that. Anyway, I'm rambling on here, and it's time to shut up. So I guess maybe we ought to take a voice vote on this moving. And what we're voting on is not actually doing this. All we're voting on is moving it forward to the council level, because once again, no binding action can take place this morning. So I want to remind everybody of that.
That's correct, Mike. I just jump in there for a minute. Yeah, what you'd be acting on is whether there would be interest, consensus among council to advance this recommendation proposal, as you described perfectly so, for a more public vetting at a future council meeting, probably one of them in April, where we would have a public hearing, and at that point, citizens, neighbors, et cetera, would have an opportunity to speak for or against the proposal. But before we would schedule that, we just need to know there's enough interest to take that next step.
So, council, everybody clear on that? And any more discussion before we move to this vote? Anyway, Mark?
No.
Mike? Yes.
Gary? No.
Bennett?
No.
Dana?
No.
Okay, the Lone Ranger finally got caught. You know, it was a good run, but the silver bullet didn't save me this time. So anyway, I'm kind of persistent on some things. It took me most of my life on the council here to get movement on some sidewalk improvements, and I hung in there, and 10 years later I had it. So I will try to reintroduce this next year with that concept of a launch off the table. Anyway, thank you, and moving forward to number 4, request from North Iowa Events Center Air Arena Expansion Project.
I'll just hang out up here on this one. Don't have a lot to say. You remember a couple months ago we had a council workshop, and we had representation from the North Iowa Events Center here, and gave a very nice presentation regarding a future expansion project out at the North Iowa Fairgrounds that would involve an expansion to the facilities out there. And they have a fundraising effort going on, and part of that capital campaign is to seek financial contributions from the various local governments in Saragordo County. I know the city of Mason City has indicated its willingness to contribute to the project, as has Saragordo County. And so it's been a couple of months now, and so we want to put this on the agenda, see where the council is at. If we've got consensus that we can go ahead and let the folks at the North Iowa Events Center know what, if any, level of participation they can expect from the city for this project. So.
Council, any comment, discussion on contributing to the North Iowa Events Center expansion project?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I want to be supportive of this. I know in our workshop last year, I was also supportive. I think the North Iowa Events Center is a crucial part of tourism to North Iowa, used by lots of different folks. And I appreciate the fact that the board out there and the county, as well as the city of Mason City, have committed some support to it. So I think for North Iowa and for businesses in Clear Lake and economic development and tourism here, I would be supporting this. Thank you.
And just add, if you've got a level of support in mind financially.
You asking me or the Mayor Pro Tem?
Anyone.
Me?
Oh,
okay.
since you spoke, but
Yeah.
You're supportive, but I just wonder if you'd indicate
Yes,
a
thank
level
you,
of
Scott. No,
financial-
I'm
I
sorry.
think the ask was for $100,000.
Yeah, no, I think the idea that, you know, would be much more amenable. If we did something like $25,000 this year and maybe another 25 next year, a multi-year support, I think, would be a good approach. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
I too agree that I think we should be supportive as well. I'm not sure 25,000 would be the amount I would be favorable towards. I'm thinking more like maybe 10,000. And if it was consecutive over a couple of years, something in between the 10 to 25, I think it is a opportunity that a lot of people have to use the fairgrounds over there, and it has grown quite a bit over the last couple of years. I know the racetrack's been redone and doing well, and all the equine opportunities that they have over there has really grown, and so I would hate to see that diminish as it was for a while, and to see it growing and doing well. I think it's something we should be supportive of as well.
Thank you. Gary, anything?
Yeah, I am not supportive of it at this time. We've got a lot of unknown costs coming up that we're not sure about. We've got the seawall project coming up. We don't know where that's going to come in at. Main Street came in. It's a good bid. It's 5% over, but that's $115,000 more than what we planned on. Like I say, the seawall's still to come up, but we've got other projects coming up. Look at the inflation we have. Our budget, we didn't really affect our fuel prices going up like they have. No. I would like to see us put this on hold for a while. It's in the budget. We can exercise it when we feel like it, but I'd like to see us sit back a little bit and see what happens here before we make a decision.
Thank you. Mark?
So we've got the 25 in the budget for,
For fiscal year '23, we did put a placeholder line item in the budget of $25,000.
do we know what the commitments are of the other entities?
Mason City is using some of their ARPA funds, and I think it's $200,000, and the county, I think, is in an equal amount of $200,000.
And are their commitments over a
I do not
time
believe
period?
they're over a particular time period, no.
Thank you, Mark. I guess I have no problem supporting the $25,000. I've been sitting here a long time, and maybe too long for some people's concept, but we've been involved in a variety of regional and public private projects over the years, and I think looking at the big picture, what benefits the Mason City area benefits Clear Lake. We both have things that attract people from outside, and we've got enough attractions locally that we get a lot of the spillover, even if it's a Mason City event. And I thought the Fair Board made a wonderful presentation at our previous workshop, and at least sold me on the benefits of this project for the whole area. So, yeah, I'd be willing to support the 25 moving forward.
For just 1 year or consecutive years?
Unless the sky does fall, consecutive years,
So
probably.
25 for 2 years.
Yeah. So, anyway, I guess maybe we need to vote on this one too. And should I phase it as a 1 year thing or consecutive years at 25,000?
Why don't you start with the latter?
The latter. So, all right, so what we're going to vote on here, Council, is funding for the North Iowa Events Center. And once again, I would remind the Council that we've approved the budget, and it's in the budget, so
yeah, okay.
it isn't going to require an amendment, and so be it. Anyway, so everybody clear on what we're voting?
We're voting for consecutive years, 2 years?
Yes.
25,000.
Yes.
25 each year, 25,000 fiscal year '23, 25,000
Yep.
fiscal year '24.
No one wants to wait and see what the world's going to happen here. What's the rush? I guess that's my question.
Any other questions? or comments? All right, here we go. I guess my turn to start. So I'm going to vote yes. Gary?
No.
Bennett?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Okay. 4-1. Guess that's the number of the day. Moving on, 5, review of tree planting for Main Avenue, 8th Street to 20th Street.
Come down for the podium on this. We got a little more to talk about for an introduction on this one. So you've got some items in your packet that Jason and I have been working on. If you remember the previous phase of East Main Avenue Street reconstruction from 14th Street to 20th Street, we had taken down some trees in that phase of the project. Our intent was always, of course, to replant those. We thought maybe we would wait and do that all in one shot between 8th and 14th Street, but I think it would be better to do the replanting on that segment between 8th and 14th now. So we've had the landscape architect with Weinster and Associates develop a plan for that section between 8th and 14th on tree plantings. This would not just simply be a replacement program, but there are more trees that we could put in than what we lost. So we think that's a good idea to add the appropriate trees for this section of East Main Avenue. This, of course, would be predominantly within the city right-of-way, so the area between the curb and the sidewalk, we've got enough room to put the trees in there. Probably looking at acquiring trees with a little bit more girth to them, so a little more substantial, withstand the snow push, since they'll be located in the right-of-way and they'll be supported, of course, as part of that. There would be a couple that we would propose to be located on private property as well, so we'd want to get the concurrence of the affected property owner, the adjoining property owner for that as well. But I think it's a good plan to replace and add some of the trees that we lost in that segment. We've also got a plan proposed here for the section between 8th and 14th as well to improve that area with the planting. So part of the process here would be, there'd be a cost obviously associated with the tree planting. So Jason's going to review the plan here in just a moment, but our process here would be to get your general green light on whether or not to proceed with this concept plan for 14th to 20th on East Main Avenue. And if that looks good, the concept plan that we have here, we would send letters out to the affected property owners in this area advising them, here's what our plan is, and give them an opportunity to weigh in on whether or not they're favorable or not towards having a tree planted in the right-of-way out front, or in some cases on their private property. Give them an opportunity to respond to that, and our goal would be to hopefully later this spring be planting as many trees as we possibly can in that segment. So these are, of course, trees that are appropriate for the streetscape. They have a tolerance for, obviously, the chemicals that we use for snow removal and sand and salt and those mixtures and those kind of things. So there are trees that would not grow massively high. These are about 25, 30-foot tall type trees. And also being diligent about the span, I guess, of the trees, the width on them. So obviously we've got sidewalks there, so the branches would grow more vertical than horizontally on some of these trees as well. So I think V&K's done a nice job picking out the right kind of trees. And as I look at Mike, we did this once before on North Shore Drive. Alliance had come in when we did that reconstruction project and had trimmed a great many of trees to the point where they just needed simply to be removed. So those were removed as part of that project, and we followed that up kind of similar to this with a tree planting system there, and I think it looks really good. So, I don't have anything in terms of any more introductory remarks. Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Can I add something for us to think about as long as we're on the trees here? About a change order coming up, change the sidewalk width from 5 to 4 foot. Give a little more room for these plantings to take hold.
That's possible. So the next
we should
phase,
consider that a little bit.
So the next phase of East Main involves 5-foot wide sidewalks. We built 5-foot sidewalks on other projects. The last two segments of East Main, we've put 5-foot sidewalks in, but definitely if we were to change that from a 5-foot sidewalk on both sides of East Main between 8th and 14th, that would give an additional foot. So the street width is not changing. So the back curb to back curb remains 43 foot wide. The result of the added 1 foot of sidewalk is the narrowing of the green space, the boulevard within the city right away. That's what Gary's talking about, is by maintaining that with a 4-foot sidewalk versus a 5-foot sidewalk. So I'd leave that for your consideration at some point. We don't need to know that today,
Well,
but it's a
got
good,
time, but-
interesting thought. So,
Yeah. A little more breathing room in there for them.
Some of these, Jason may talk about this as well, but the root system, we've been careful about what types of trees go in, so the root system goes more downward versus outward because of the sidewalk and the curb there. So I don't have anything further unless anybody else has any questions. All right, we'll just have Jason come up.
Council, any other questions of Scott? Welcome, Jason. I haven't seen you for at least a few hours here.
Yeah.
Council, in your packets, there is the tree planting plan that we've prepared from 14th Street to 20th Street. We wanted to start with this phase, get some general council consensus, and then we will continue putting together a tree planting plan from 8th to 14th Street, knowing that those plantings won't be done until next year. In the plan, you'll see the spacing on the trees is a little bit random. Reason being is we did pay a lot of attention in the corridor to the existing plantings, the existing trees that are in there on the private property. Some of these properties have some good, healthy trees on the private side of the sidewalk, so we didn't put a new tree right in front of that. Also, we're proposing to plant these trees in groupings. Reason being is our landscape architect, his experience is it provides a less sparse appearance by putting them in groupings. Like Scott mentioned, our plan here is to enhance the corridor, not simply replace trees. By memory, the 14th to 20th Street segment, I think we took down 8 or 9 trees to accommodate construction, and as shown here, we're looking at replacing it with 32 trees. So the trees are not ornamental, they're not really short trees due to the narrow space between the sidewalk and the curb. We need the trees to grow up a little bit taller so the branches can be trimmed up above the sidewalk to provide headroom for anybody walking on the sidewalk. There is one area towards 20th Street on the north side. It's extremely narrow between the sidewalk and the curb, and we are recommending putting the new trees on the private side of the sidewalk there, which would obviously require some property owner input and approval. The trees that were selected for their salt tolerance, the less root upheaval. Oak and maple have shallow roots. These trees are selected for less root upheaval, used in streetscape type of areas. And then they're cleaner trees. They don't have fruit, obviously, for planting along the street. So we're not looking for formal council approval on this. Generally, a head nod to proceed with sending some information out to the impacted property owners to get their feedback on this before proceeding with soliciting quotes for the trees.
Council, any questions of Jason? I think it's a great plan, and just to, I mean, trees become controversial until they're dead trees, and then someone wishes someone else was cutting it down because they aren't real cheap. But I think even on the stretch of Maine that we're getting ready to rebuild, most people aren't aware that we hired an arborist to inspect those trees, and a lot of them were long in the tooth and not going to last long anyway. And this looks like a well-planned approach to replanting some trees. Hopefully we can extend that on down toward 8th Street when we get done with the other part, and make Main Avenue the beautiful street it's always been. So I applaud this whole concept. So, council, any comments, or everybody in favor of moving forward with what we've got here?
Yeah, I would simply concur with your comments, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, well, we got a 10 thumbs up on that one, so move forward here. Okay, regarding a potential housing subdivision development, introduction by Mr. Flory.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. This is, I think, a very exciting opportunity. We've got a couple of developers here today that are very interested in doing some housing development in our community, and I think, obviously, we all know that housing, I think, is definitely a crisis here in the community, lack of housing. And I don't want to say affordable housing, but just lack of housing in general. And in particular, we suffer, I think, from a lack of moderately priced housing opportunities, although at this point, again, I think there's one house for sale in the entire community. So this is definitely the #1 crisis, I think, facing our community. So to have an opportunity to have a couple of developers here this morning interested in working in our community, I think is exciting. Just historically, I think everyone is aware that the city has participated financially over the years in all the different residential subdivisions that have taken place in our community. I think a few months back was talking about one particular subdivision. It added about $6 million in assessed valuation to the community, obviously a lot less taxable, and the city only gets about 30% of that. But housing is definitely in the best interest of our community, our school district, et cetera. So we have participated in buying pipe material, water main pipe material, sanitary sewer main pipe material in the past on all these various subdivisions that have taken place and have been very successful. And I would just add that as I've watched many communities across the state suffer, obviously, from the same kinds of issues related to housing, this is obviously not a unique problem to Clear Lake. This is a crisis not only in Iowa, but across the country, without any doubt at all. I watch my peers in other communities where the city is actually doing the development. They are building the streets, they are building sewer, they're buying the land, and they're using the nonprofit corporation to sell lots to get development because they can't even get a developer to come into their community. So we have two developers, separate developers here on separate projects this morning. So we have the first here to speak, David Albright on a particular project. And again, I just think it's exciting, and I appreciate their interest in our community, and they can talk about their projects. And David, I know, has experience in developing in other communities, and I'll just let you take it from there, David.
Scott, thank you very much. Good morning, David Albright, 3100 White Pine Court, Waukee, Iowa, representing Sukup Ag and Bill Yon. Steve Sukup was here earlier. He had to step out, head for another meeting this morning. The overall site location, to start out with, this property is at the end of North 20th Street, north of West 16th Avenue. If you're familiar with the area, it's owned, 42 acres is owned by Sukup Ag, and just shy of 29 acres is owned by Bill Yon for approximately 71 acres and some change. The owners came before me last fall, and we were talking about the need for affordable housing in Clear Lake. Housing in general, I think, there's a extreme shortage, but I'm here to address an affordable opportunity for new construction. On your site, we have a couple different specific uses, both multifamily and single-family housing. We're splitting the two different housing types by North 20th Street. That would be continued from the south property line to the north property line, which is approximately 1,800 feet. To the west of North 20th Street would be multifamily, which would consist of apartments, senior housing, and two-story townhomes. To the east of North 20th Street, we are proposing single-family lots, which would consist of twin homes, smaller homes on 50 to 60-foot lots, and then larger 70 to 80-foot lots, which would adjoin the existing neighborhoods, which would be in harmony of what their neighbors have. As Scott had mentioned, one of the biggest crises that we have in land development and providing affordable housing are infrastructure cost. When I first looked at this a few months ago, we started out with concept number one. We had North 20th Street, which was considerably further to the east. The reason that we were trying to push North 20th Street to the east was to eliminate the need for a sanitary sewer lift station. In our engineering, we quickly discovered that it was going to be too expensive with fill material, that the site was short on dirt, and so we had to entertain and come back in with the proposal of a lift station for the development, and actually future developments to the north. The group is asking for approval or consideration from the City Council that we would create, or that the city would propose creating a tax district proposal for this particular site in order to allow us to come in and make application for tax increment financing for all or a portion of the development. With the support of creating a tax district for this property, it would allow us then to take the next step, which we would complete or prepare a preliminary plat of the 71 acres. Right now, we're proposing approximately 428 living units on the entire site. Site improvements, our proposal is that we would like to present construction drawings to the City of Clear Lake for review, and start out with the construction of North 20th Street. We feel that with the construction of North 20th, that will open up the development, both multifamily and single family. Proposing at this point in time that we would start in 2022. I think realistically the improvements would be completed in 2023. It certainly is going to help with the shortage of housing in Clear Lake by offering new construction and affordable new construction. We think that it'll also help the existing market, that we will find that more existing homes will come on the market. And with that said, I'll be open for questions.
Let me just jump in with a few comments. Of course, this is just kind of the first step of a kind of a rather long process, a journey here, if you will, on doing a project like this. But definitely wanted to introduce this concept and get your thoughts and opinions to kind of continue to move forward on it. I think it's a great project. It fills a great need for the community. We'd be excited to work with the developer on the project and proceed kind of talking to working through the next steps on development agreements and those kinds of things. But if you're interested in continuing to pursue this, we'd like to kind of get your thoughts on that as well. I would also say kind of the affordable housing. I don't like that word at all. I think we should not use that anymore. That's really the moderately priced kind of homes. The affordable is so subjective, can mean so many different things to so many different people. What's affordable to me may not be affordable to someone else, and vice versa. So, I mean, getting that market, I think what we have talked about for people that, for example, teachers, nurses, healthcare workers, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, those kinds of folks to come to our community. There's a real gap in that opportunity, and I think that situation is probably in that 350,000 and down category for our community for new construction.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Scott. I think, well, first of all, thank you for presenting the opportunity. We're very fortunate today to have two of these, and we really appreciate that, because I think we'd all agree that the strategic need that we have in order to grow is new housing, and at the price points that you described. So I think it is important that we move forward in evaluating this proposal and the next one, and see where it goes and how we can be supportive. So, thank you.
Scott, I would just have one question. David had brought up tax increment financing. Can you talk a little to that?
Well, that's a long, complex, and nobody's going to want to hear that this morning for sure. I'll put a after session on for that. But I think generally the concept here is that, as I outlined before, that we have participated at a level of buying pipe material previously. This is going to require a greater investment by the city, significantly greater. So I just want you to be prepared to understand that we would be taking quite a step above what we have done in the past. I think it's very needed, very necessary, especially when I look at the crisis that we have in our community with no housing whatsoever available. And I look at what other communities around the state, around the country are doing to become more aggressive. We're in a good position to be able to, we could do a lot of things, but this is clearly a need. Mike has been around a long time. We always talk about, through budgeting, I always talk about the separating the wishes, the wants from the needs. There are many wishes and wants, and those don't always get funded. I think this is clearly a need for the community, and it's something I think we need to step up the game quite a bit, and that would be something. I've got some thoughts. I'm not going to go into those today. Those would be part of a development agreement negotiation process, but I think we clearly are going to have to do a lot more than what we have done in the past. I think the economy is dictating that. I think the market that we're in is dictating that. I think some of our population or demographics dictate that. And again, I think my message is that we need to be a lot more aggressive.
I would agree with that.
I agree with that also. I have a question, David. Phase 1 and 2, is everything west of 20th?
Phase 1 is North 20th Street construction.
Just the street?
Just by putting in North 20th Street and access to both the east and the west, it'll allow immediate development and growth. Everything west of North 20th Street will be private streets after that because of the multifamily type property. So it'll allow, I'm going to say, the Yon property to develop and go vertical immediately with the North 20th Street. East, those will be public streets, and we would like to have further discussion of additional tax increment financing for the residential, but we won't go into that today.
Well, I'm basically confused, but I'll ask a question here. So, North 20th is definitely a city street, so this would be the city building the extension of the street.
That would be something we would negotiate.
Okay, just clarify that. And yeah, what was it out in the old Andrews property, 31st Street?
North 32nd.
32nd. Well, I was close. One number off. Anyway, 32nd Street. Of course, we decided that had to be built if there was going to be development out there. So, I mean, to be involved in something like this with those results, man, it looks like a win-win to me. And so 20th Street would be extended due north then, straight
Just
north?
to the north property line, approximately 1,800 feet.
1,800 feet.
It would also include, or part of this phase 1, would be having the engineering and the construction of a sanitary lift station and power.
Okay.
The numbers that I've looked at, thinking of the comprehensive plan, I think you're going to be talking about further this morning, that the current sanitary sewer depth at our south property line, we feel that to have the growth that I think that area can support, it's going to require a lift station. I think it's going to be in the best interest of the city and the community that we develop a sanitary lift station that will service just more than the 70 acres. And think out past, but that's more what Scott's going to be able to help us on. But it will certainly be necessary in that first phase of construction.
So you're saying the first phase will be on the Yon property, the second phase will be on the Sukup?
First phase is
At
gonna
some
be right
point.
down the property line between the two owners with a shared development agreement. And then once that part is constructed, then, you know, the owners will develop, at their own pace and own need, after the North 20th.
I see.
Is all of this east of the drainage ditch?
Yes.
The drainage ditch
The whole
is-
project?
Correct.
Yeah. I'm trying to read this and get a sense of what I'm looking at. Okay. Mark's got it online for me there. Okay, any other questions, council?
Okay, so yeah, that's generally, you know, we're obviously not going to design it sitting right here, but I think what we're looking for is just the concept of really, I'd say it this way, but upping our game in terms of incentives for housing, construction, development. You know, we're like I say, we've participated previously, but this would be at a much greater level, greater extent. You know.
And my understanding is, once again today, we give you a head nod
Yeah.
to do
Mhm.
this.
Yep.
Nothing is binding.
Right.
And at a future time, you bring a proposal to the council and we vote on it then.
Precisely. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So, Gary just wandered off there, but positive head nods? here?
Yes, and Gary was supportive as well, so.
All right, so we got a 5-0 on that one, so thank you, Mr. Albright, and
For your time and consideration.
we'll see what Scott can come up with.
So I mentioned David also does live here in Clear Lake as well, so.
Well, he's a lucky man.
Get a dock space when I
You did get a dock space, how about that?
You had to remind me.
Well, we'll go on to the next developer. Jackie, you want to just go?
Three different ones.
There we go.
Same one we've already got, I think. David? Okay.
These are all
So
different.
two?
Okay. Oh, yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I told him you were supportive, so I hope that was okay.
Alternate 1, 2, 3.
Good morning, Jacqueline Arthur with the Laird Law Firm, Clear Lake and Mason City. We are now in your community too, so thank you for having us in your community. What we've passed out this morning are three slightly different concept plans for a property that borders South 8th Street here in Clear Lake, south of 15th Avenue South. And with me today are John Snow and Andrew Nicholas. They are teaming up to begin a development project on this property. So many of you are probably familiar with John and Andrew. John has been in the community for many, many years. He's been in the construction industry, he tells me, since he was 16. And don't tell anybody, but that's 22 years, so we can all do the math. He has snow construction, and you'll drive around your community and see a lot of homes that John and his team have built throughout the years. Andrew Nicholas is a lifelong Clear Lake resident. He farms, he's an entrepreneur, and him and John are teaming up to bring more priced Clear Lake. So I'm gonna jump on a couple comments that Scott made about affordable or moderately priced housing. And in our discussions with friends, family, community members, a teacher, two-income household can afford, according to their bankers and their loan applications, somewhere around a $300,000 to a $350,000 house. And so when we talk about affordable housing, we're looking at those people who have our careers in the community, the teachers, the firefighters, the postal workers that can afford housing. And so does $300,000 sound affordable? Well, according to the industry, that's basically what a two-income family with good jobs, but we're not talking about lawyers. Just kidding. Just kidding. So John and Andrew, through their limited liability company, have entered into a conditional purchase agreement on this parcel of land. And they are in their due diligence period. And that due diligence period is to come up with concept plans, see if the zoning fits, see if the city is comfortable with the plan. And in that process, we have priced out what it takes to put in the infrastructure to give you a housing development on those three graphics that we've provided. Those graphics are for a roughly 25.6 acre parcel. We're looking at roughly 54 single-family lots, and then depending on what type of multifamily lots or the configuration, approximately 20 multifamily, which would be your mixture of twin homes, multi-story apartment buildings, then leaving about 2.5 acres down in the southeast corner for neighborhood commercial, potentially a Quick Star or something like that that would serve the neighborhood on that part of town. We're not locked into anything, but we've reserved a little corner to have some type of commercial enterprise as well to serve this community. The infrastructure to put in the streets, the water, the sewer, storm sewers, etc., is estimated to be just under $3 million. The land costs for acquisition and the carrying costs make this project such that you can't sell the lots to break even. The lots would be priced too high in order for a developer to put in the infrastructure in addition to acquiring the land, the carrying costs of the debt to service all of this. It means that the lots would not fit into a box where someone could put up a $300,000 house. You'll see on these graphics a couple images, and John and Andrew have priced these out. You'll see that single-family home on all three of the plans, and depending on whether it's slab on grade or whether it has a basement, you're looking at about $280 for slab on grade for that single-family home. You're looking at anywhere up to $350, depending upon if it's a finished basement under that home. Likewise with the twin home, two-story concepts, those are priced out a little bit lower. Those are slab on grade in our concepts. They're priced out at about $275,000 a unit. And so we think that what we're presenting to you is a plan that fits that need in the community, where your two-income families can easily get into a new housing unit, which then frees up other housing around the community and that trickle effect. So if someone can move into a new home, there may be freeing up a home that's under that price point for other members of the community. So what we're here today is not unlike our colleagues with Jan and Suka. In order to make this work, it does take a partnership with the city. I have always been appreciative of the projects that I've been able to work on in Clear Lake because the city has provided that pipe, which is an enormous benefit to a developer, but unfortunately it just doesn't leave any ability for a developer to get the land, put in the infrastructure, and be able to sell a lot at a price point that someone can put up in a moderately priced home. So we're here today to see if you want to partner with us, and then to see if we can work with your administrator, with your finance chief to put together plans of a partnership where we can work together to get the infrastructure in place and expand the moderately, AKA affordable housing. in our, John and Andrew, like I said, are here. We're here to answer questions if you have them. We understand what your role is today. So we're kind of hoping for a 5-0 as well on this project. Thank you.
I was just going to chime in real quick if I can. So this is not unlike many of the other subdivisions where there's an overall concept plan developed. So I applaud the developers and Jackie for the work that they've done here with WH Guest to develop the overall concept plan. This, like many others, be done in phases, obviously. And so at some point there'd be a subdivision 1, subdivision 2, subdivision 3 as part of whatever the name of this particular subdivision would be called. And again, multiple phases. But I'm really excited about, again, the diversity of the project. I've watched John and his company for years in the community. I've watched him build houses. They do a great job. Heard nothing but good comments about him. So he's a quality developer, quality person, and I just think it's an exciting project. It really fits our needs well and ticks all the boxes. So I think, again, back to the same comments with the other proposal, this be done incrementally, eat the elephant one bite at a time, and just like with the other one, don't get too aggressive. Obviously, we have a capacity in our community for what we can absorb in terms of new construction and what people can build at one time. So I think this is a terrific project. And again, I just would like to see us get a little more aggressive on this. I think we're more than past the stage in terms of housing where our community is really kind of suffering by an inability to grow due to a lack of this kind of, in particular, moderately priced housing.
If I could just dovetail on that as far as phasing, this piece of land, the way the streets and the design are set up, it's one that's easily phasable, whether you start at the north and focus on some single family and multifamily with those street extensions, start at the south, bring in maybe some more multifamily in that commercial. So it's an easily phasable project. And the good news is that we've got water, we've got sewer, we've got infrastructure along South 8th Street, and so we're able to tie in, and we're not asking the city to expand outside of its already existing footprint to do development, which I know is a consideration that cities are paying attention to, as expanding their footprints. So.
Yep. And that's a very learned observation. There are many other conversations we've had with others that are interested where simply the cost to extend the infrastructure to get it to the parcel that they're interested in is almost cost prohibitive to get there. So I would be remiss not to also thank the developers for their interest in doing this project. It's, in this particular case, significant. Their development is risky business, to say the least. And so to take the initiative to pursue acquiring this property is certainly not without risk. And so we're lucky, again, to have people here, both these parties, willing to take some risk and develop and invest in our community.
Can I ask a stupid question?
No, you've maxed out already.
Bear with me, there'll be more. What are these purple dots on here?
Purple dots, those are like retention or detention cells for water.
Okay.
And so, the design would be to take that storm water and store it till it can naturally discharge or retain it depending upon the design. So that's what those purple ovals are down on the south. That land to the south of this project is getting pretty wet and low, and so we're not exacerbating. We're keeping our water on our property, which is required, and so that's what those big purple dots are.
One thing I did notice on the developers before you, they've made provision for a park, and I was sitting here thinking, this does not have any provision for a park.
Right,
and Pine Tree Park is quite a ways away.
We do have a park just on the other side of the Mobile Home Park. I'm not sure how developed it is, but it does appear to be
Where's
park.
that?
Right there.
I believe that's Tourist Park. It's been renovated.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Tourist park.
Good size.
All right.
Around the
Yeah,
corner.
no,
I stand corrected.
Yes, excuse me for not mentioning it, you know, that is one of the pluses of this, is you do have existing residential. You've got different types of residential right in proximity. You've got park. And so as far as, you know, when you think about infill development, this is a pretty good location to infill in your community without extending services beyond the existing footprint. You're filling in a piece that has been used for ag land primarily, but it's a good fit, good mix for the area.
We're very fortunate to have two developers here that want to invest in our community. We need to take advantage of this, guys.
Any other comments, Council?
Yeah, I think it's an absolutely ideal location, as you mentioned, Jacqueline. I mean, it's just perfect. It's a really outstanding proposal with the mix of housing that you guys have put forward here. And again, like I said to the other developer, we really appreciate it. We recognize the strategic need for this kind of housing, and I agree with Gary. Yeah, very, very outstanding proposal and something that we should certainly support.
Thank
So,
you.
congratulations.
Well, you know, having been in Clear Lake the vast majority of my life, I've seen a lot of changes. And one of the biggest changes that I've been able to notice in recent years is people can't wait to move here. I mean, they're anxious to be in Clear Lake. I joke with a lot of people, if you got to live in North Iowa, Clear Lake's the only place to be. But that isn't a joke anymore. It's a very truism. And we do desperately need more places for them to move. And these projects would seem to fit that bill in a big way. Also, your comment about Mr. Snow back there starting the construction at 16 explains a few things about his attention in my classroom.
Well, he told us he didn't listen to a thing, Mike.
He must have listened something in econ class because he seems to be doing quite well. So we'll go with that anyway. Yeah, you know, you stick around one place long enough, and you got a lot of skeletons out there. And but I know the dirt on a lot of these people, so just check in sometime. Half of them work for the city now, and a couple of them are sitting at the council dais with me. So there you go. Anyway, council, I imagine moving forward with Scott checking into all these things is what we're asking about. So everybody in favor of that? Dana?
Absolutely.
Bennett, yes. Gary,
Yes.
yes. Mark, yes. Mike, yes. So thanks a lot, and good luck. You're both after something that's a giant need in town. My only comment would be to not make it a primary VRBO.
We'll put that in the
project.
covenants. We'll require
That in my neighborhood has become a virus, and you know, every way I look, no one lives there most of the time, and it's kind of sad because at one point it was a neighborhood with lots of people, and now it's temporary people. And fortunately, Andrew moved into the neighborhood, so I can keep an eye on him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're done with that one, I guess, and we got number 7, moving right along. Joint Clear Lake, Mason City, Cerro Gordo County Comprehensive Plan update by Mr. Flory.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I don't have a whole lot on this, so I'll just stay up here today. If you recall from our budget, sessions that we had allocated funding for a new comprehensive plan. We were going to work collaboratively with the City of Mason City, Saragordo County on this joint comprehensive planning effort. Each entity would have its own comprehensive plan developed as part of that. So we've gone through a pretty exhaustive process. We had budgeted, I think it was roughly $50,000-$60,000 for this, but we've gone through a pretty exhaustive RFQ process. Me and my counterparts from those other entities, Riddler's was also involved in that process. But we got, I think, 3 proposals back out of about 15. So we did interviews. We're bringing back the consultants for more interviews, but I just want to give you a heads up that the least costly proposal on that for Clear Lake will be $100,000. So significantly more than what we had budgeted. The other proposals were quite a bit higher than that. So just wanted to give you a heads up that we'll probably be looking at a line item amendment in that category. So. But again, 3 good firms, positive about that. It's just like everything else, the cost was a lot more than what we had anticipated. So
I rest my case on rushing into things.
Any other comments, council? Well, once again, and sure you're getting tired of hearing me talk, but we've been involved in a variety of comprehensive studies, and you know, when I grew up here, we were just a little farming community with a sideline and resorting. You know, this property was a lumber yard. Across the street was a grain elevator. The old traction railroad came down Main every day and picked up a couple of boxcars full of grain and went back to Mason City, when it was lucky anyway. And, you know, the community isn't that anymore. This community has just zoomed forward with all kinds of progress. Highway 18, where we've developed, wasn't there. 7th Avenue North used to be Highway 18, believe it or not. And North Shore Drive was the other part of Highway 18. Bill remembers that. And so we've had development go that direction and many other directions. And I'm hoping that's what these comprehensive plans are all about, figuring out, you know, what we've got and what we need. And so.
Well, that's a beautiful remarks there, Mayor, that, you know, we have done a number of comprehensive plans focused on the downtown, special purpose districts like the Surf District and so forth. The last overall comprehensive plan we had done was in 2008. And, you know, we're 14, 15 years on from that at this point. And, you know, I've been here about 21 years in the community. I have so many people that have lived here for a very long time that tell me that this town does not look today like what it, in a positive way, not look like what it did 20 years ago. There's been a lot of change in our community, and so you have to, it's the one constant, obviously, and so you have to adapt to that. And believe it or not, we do get people that say that rely on our comprehensive plan, look at our comprehensive plan, and when you have a community as dynamic as Clear Lake, 14, 15 years, much changes.
Any other questions, comments before we ask for the head nod on this one? Okay, Dana.
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
Yep.
Bennett, Gary?
Yes.
Mike, yes. Mark, yes. All right.
I wanted to be the one. But that's fine. I'm kidding. Yes.
What a sense of humor. You can't make this stuff up. All right. Well, now it's, I guess, time to ask you folks to leave because we need to go into a closed session. And
They've had enough, probably.
Well, probably more than enough. So thank you for your attendance and your comments, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the other end of these things.